When the Canucks miss the playoffs again.
When Jim Benning trades away all our picks.
When Goldalden is scratched for the third game in a row. C4 is there. With Sedin-like vision, Horvat's work ethic, and Petey's electric personality. Here comes the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast with Chris, Matt, Anna, and Adam.
Powered by Overtime Media.
Welcome to another episode of the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast. This is Chris at Lightforce, joined virtually by Anna at A4603. Missing in action because he is planning wedding stuff is Matt Lee at @MattLee_61. And still on the LTIR is Adam Obanel Carter at AdamFOC. Welcome to the virtual world of podcasting. Anna, how are you?
Yeah, I'm okay, thank you. Do we think Matt's really planning a wedding? I mean, who's getting married? Like, no one's getting married anymore, so...
Well, I could,
what does he have to plan?
I don't see Matt being involved in the planning, but I could see
him.
Matt could, and I'm not trying to stereotype, but I guess I will. I could see Matt being bridezilla.
Yeah, that's the thing. Either you get him involved and he takes over and gets real grumpy about it, or you just don't get him involved. But, best of luck to future Mrs. Producer.
What do you think she sees in him?
Yeah, real good question. Don't know. But
I mean, maybe our listeners know what Mrs. Producer sees in Matt. I mean, his two co-hosts are like, not entirely sure. I just sort of presumed he was going to live the bachelor life.
He did use a helicopter to propose, though. So,
well, talk about go big or go home.
Yeah, I'm glad she said yes in that way.
Yeah,
that's strong than otherwise.
Thanks for the helicopter tour to the secluded lake in the coastal mountains, but I'm going to have to pass.
Yeah,
on the whole getting hitched thing. Would have been.
That's a real awkward ride back.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh man! Anywho, it is not for us to talk about the wedding of Mr. and Mrs. Producer Lee, but we were going to talk a little bit about happenings in the world of the National Hockey League. There is a chance that hockey is going to resume. I don't exactly know the number of phases the NHL has, but apparently the Phase 2 proposal has been made.
So we are in Phase 2.
Okay, we are in Phase 2, okay.
So the province entered Phase 2 last week, and unrelated, NHL entered Phase 2 today.
Well, but the thing is, provincial
they're allowed to practice.
Vary. I don't know. There's so many phases.
Yeah, I know.
I can't keep track of what's going
on. Much like the Premier League back in the UK, they're allowed to train in small groups. Mm-hmm. And there's all kinds of precautions around that. I imagine they will be bringing their own gear, taking their own gear back, that kind of thing. No contact, etc.
Well, I guess we'll talk a little bit about what that world looks like. I mean, you are our presumptive expert right now because I'm pretty much in pandemic mode. I don't know Sunday from Thursday. We're also going to talk a little bit about what that return to hockey will actually look like if it were to take place. There is discussion as to if there is, let's say, a playoff tournament or whatever the heck it might be, who might the Canucks match up against, what does that look like, and all sorts of bits and bobs as we already, talk about in each and every episode, including the possibility of a potential NHL hockey draft occurring before the conclusion of the current, somewhat suspended NHL hockey season. So, you know what? Let's go straight into rewind. So the Players Association, actually, let me rewind it further. The NHL approved this 2014 playoff sort of tournament. And the intent there was to ensure that the bubble teams that were in the playoff race going into the sort of tail end season of the suspension weren't unduly punished for a suspension, while at the same time ensuring that those that did make that were going to make the playoffs were given sort of a step up. And so the idea was that there'll be essentially the qualifications into the round of 16, the round of 8, round of 8, round of 16, round of 8.
Yeah, pre-playoffs, if you will.
Yeah. And as to what that format will be, if I recall correctly, they're still playing around with the ideas at a best of 7, best of 5, best of 3.
Yes, I believe the first round will be, or the proposal is the best of 5 for the
pre-playoff.
for the pre-playoffs, and then for this already for the top 4 teams in each conference, I believe that's best of 3. They're quote-unquote play-in tournament, but it does have a purpose. It's to decide seeding for the first round proper. Like, first round as we would understand it. That's what I believe the idea is, but yeah, it's all a bit wacko up in the air.
Yeah. So NHL, the league passes sort of this proposal to pass the GMs, I guess, is who would have been voting on, or owners or board of governors or whatever the heck. They have so many different levels. That goes to the NHLPA, and it wasn't as resounding of a sign of support. The NHLPA passed and approved the resolution, but I want to say there was a fair number of teams that voted against it.
Yeah, I believe that with some resistance.
And the question that I have is, because I don't think that's quite clearly come out, is it possible that some of the teams that were for it are teams that aren't even going to be involved? And if so, that means you have a good number of teams that have players who might be playing in a playoff format that don't want to play hockey. Like, kind of weird. And I get, like, it's not a simple solution. It's not a simple situation. Totally. But, you know, imagine you're a team who has a good number of players that just don't want to be there.
Yeah, I mean, that's tricky. I was actually listening to a football podcast today, and they were talking about the 2 kind of loudest voices against the Premier League playing again are people on the brink of relegation. So you can see why that, but it's unfortunate. Like, they shouldn't have to. If they feel unsafe, they feel unsafe. So I definitely don't want to judge any of the players who were questioning this format. Like, but I don't believe it was from a point of feeling unsafe. I think they were from a point of view of whether this was the best way forward, which I can understand. It's like trying to come up with a solution, and I think the general consensus is like maybe 20-team playoff might have been a bit fairer, so you don't have like teams with such a huge point difference facing off against each other. But
sure. Well, I've seen some on social media. I'm actually going to go and sort of single out Daniel Wagner, who you would know as Pasatopoulos for those that follow. And Daniel had tweeted, this was, I want to say, a few days ago, like, you know, why is it that the league needs to come back? Like, why not just stick a fork in the current season? It's done, and ensure that you're ready for next year. Focus your efforts on having a season that can actually function next year, as opposed to the conclusion. Now, I know, you know, I agree with sort of with the sentiment, what he's sort of suggesting, but the problem is the situation isn't as easy as that. Like, there are a number of contractual impacts. There's the fact that, you know, players under contract are now suddenly, you know, no longer back. Like, there's a lot more at play on the business end. But there is a part of me that's sort of, you know, taking the point that you had on relegation, wondering, you know, do some players not want to return from their perspective, the business reason? They feel it's better for them to have left off where they were so that they can go into free agency, or, I mean, we don't know, but if it's not that the fear of, oh my goodness, you know, I'm going to be possibly away from my family, I might get hurt, I might get sick. Like,
yeah.
What else could it be?
I think they have a lot of unanswered questions, and I think the thing from those players' perspective that's really difficult is that those still remain unanswered, and the NHL haven't really come up with a response to that. And they've just been asked, yeah, but in theory, would you do this? And their concerns haven't really been addressed. I mean, this example has been brought up a few times, but, you know, the Canucks captain, Bo Horvat, he has a baby due in July. So he has to miss the birth of his baby, or he has to leave his wife, who's just had this baby, to self-isolate. Like, by all intents and purposes, they planned their baby pretty well for a normal hockey season. Like, they did good on that point of view.
Which is the most important thing to do as an NHL hockey player, right?
They did real good on that point. But
hey, dear, here's the window, and it closes. Yeah. It's kind of like the playoffs, smaller.
Exactly. But so they did great on that front, but then, the world had other plans. But yeah, that's, one example. There's players with like immune system disorders or families with compromised immune systems, players where their like parents might live with them or some kind of scenario which makes it not as simple as I want to play hockey again.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, what we're sort of talking about is something that was addressed as part of sort of the plan, and the NHL had released guidelines along the lines of like, what happens if a player is diagnosed positive for COVID-19 during phase 2, at least. I would imagine this language would probably remain quite similar through other phases, but the simple premise is that if a player is diagnosed with COVID-19, they're considered unfit to play. I mean, it's like an injury. It's as if they had broken their legs, so to speak. And in turn, that's a hockey-related injury as per the CBA. With one small little caveat, it's based on the facts issue that the player contracted COVID-19 or the resulting or related illness outside of the course of his employment as a hockey player. And that's if it was established. So essentially, so how does that work if you have your family? And let's say, I'm a professional hockey player and my wife goes to Costco. She does the shopping. Yeah. And I like, if she with me and if she brings that home, I'm not, and I get it. That wasn't hockey related. Like I think there's so many different things that come into play. And I do believe that the players themselves in most situations are all going to be sequestered away from their families.
Yeah.
Right. Even if Vancouver is a hub city, I conceivably see the Vancouver Canucks throwing all their players into a hotel.
Oh, yeah. I imagine that will end up being some kind of condition of it, that you are in quarantine for at least a week. Maybe it'll be 2. But yeah, but I mean, it seems crazy to me, like the amount of testing that you need over the period of an extended playoffs, not just a normal playoffs, to like make sure that the players you have aren't contracting it. And then how do you adjust hockey to cope with that? Like, can you play hockey as is with all the fighting and the bleeding and the sweating? I mean, I guess you have to come from the point of view that all the players are clean, quote unquote.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, like, sure, all the players get tested coming in, and like that's where you start have to limit the contact to which they have. So, like, my family is a vector of communicability. So, keeping them away from me improves my chances of not picking something up. But hockey itself, to your point, it's a contact sport where players sweat. I am sure, speak moistly, to use a term that our prime minister has used. And the difficulty is that you then also have them all on the bench. I've actually been watching, sort of a little off the rails here, Bundesliga.
Right. I've been watching a little bit.
One, I'm sort of watching the matches that are on TV, which usually involve Bayern Munich because, good Canadian kid Alphonso Davies is playing.
Right.
Although if I am actually from the UK, I don't say Davies, I say Davis for some reason.
Yeah, I think it does depend if you're Welsh or English, though. But
okay,
that's a whole kettle of fish.
Yeah, like the play-by-play and announce, they say Davis. So, anywho, first and foremost, these players are running around the field, goals are scored, and they do the social distance, like elbow, some high fives, mass hugs, roll around in the grass.
When they remember.
Right. Yeah, when they remember. But what I find interesting is the substitutes are sitting in those Recaro sort of driving chairs at distance, wearing masks.
Yeah.
Because somehow the substitutes need to be kept separate, but the players themselves can all, get up into each other's business.
It's just crazy. Like, you're still tackling, like, you're still getting all up together. That blew my mind. I was just like, I've asked a few people about it. One of my best friends is German, and a huge Bayern Munich fan. So I was asking him about it. He said, it's just optics, Well,
yeah, no, that's why, like, so from an optics perspective, I mean, let's consider this building is going to be empty and the cameras are going to be where they normally are if it's televised, and I can't see it not being televised. So what is it that we're going to see? Does the NHL optically go and stretch the benches, or like what will they do to try to space their players out? But again,
I mean, there's a ton more people on the bench than there is in football.
Yeah.
They're constantly rotating. I just think, I mean, Bundesliga, like, they are acting on 2-week quarantines, like, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you'll have to go from the perspective, especially in such a high contact sport, that you're testing that much that all the players are clean, like, quote unquote, negative for COVID.
Well, okay, and then from a testing perspective, though, what type of rigor is around it? Is it like daily testing, weekly testing, monthly testing, symptomatic testing? Like,
I think the proposal is at least twice a week, and then always 2 days before games, and then but here's the kicker: players self-administer a temperature check day before and day of the game, which is just bananas to me. Like.
The thing is, the temperature check, I mean, I guess that's just determining the symptom of a fever.
Mm-hmm.
But I was reading, I want to give credit to the person who was on Twitter had shared it. They're like, here you have NHL hockey players who will refuse to take their skate off if they've broken a bone, just so that they can, be given the needle and stay on the ice. And now you're going to ask them if you're not feeling that well and you've got a fever or a cough or something to not like it. It's culturally within hockey already problematic. And I don't know if they can shift it to the point of like self-administered temperature checks. Oh yeah, I checked it and my temperature is at 28. Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
It's kind of like the reverse of the kid trying to stay home from school.
Yeah, exactly. Bill Horvat coming in like a flop sweat, looking pale as a ghost. And I'm ready to play, coach. This ain't nothing. I had bad sushi.
Yeah, I hate the BS super macho culture of, just applauding people that stay on the field, like exists in all sports. And I hate it. Just like if you're injured, you're injured. That isn't weakness to break a bone, but it exists in hockey and you can't reverse it. Just that's what hockey is, unfortunately.
Well, and in the notes that you put together, and I'm glad that you have that down, is the NHL actually has recent experience with communicable disease.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had an issue with mumps,
and they're real bad at it.
Like it one blows my mind that's possible. And it sort of begs the question about vaccinations, but still, that didn't stop games. And once players were diagnosed, they were pulled out. Like, in the grand scheme of things, what does an NHL team generally do at come playoff time? Yeah, a number of blackies is up in the press box. They have additional bodies for injuries and the like. Now, the Canucks are in a fortunate situation where they're going to have a ton of additional bodies once they're healthy. And we'll talk more about that in handful of Andy. But if, players do start to get sick and they start pulling players out, like, are they doing contact tracing? Like, this player tested positive. Do they have a roommate? I'm going to presume they maybe don't. But like, who is it that they've been in contact with? Oh, that person and this person sit next to them on the bench. Like, they might be asymptomatic. Are they going to then test and then there's a lot of questions, and I'm not trying to awfulize here. Like, I will be the first to admit I've enjoyed the last few weekends getting up in the morning, flipping on the TV, watching Bundesliga, watching ESPN coverage of the Korean Baseball League. I'm not into watching NASCAR because the whole idea of driving cars around a track where you can only turn left doesn't really inspire me. But I am kind of enjoying that return to sports because it helps sort of turn my brain off the few times it does turn on. And, it allows us to that escape. So I do want hockey to return, but I'm also cognizant that it's not as simple as it's just going to happen.
Yes. So I think we're both on the same page here that it's just, if there's a safe way to do it, we'd love it to happen, but there are just a ton of issues. Not mentioning the fact that this is a league that takes place over 2 countries.
Well, okay, and that's actually sort of as a segue. I mean, the hub city concept does appear to be the one that they're going to use. Now, the United States has recently updated their quarantine legislation to simply exempt professional athletes from entering.
Although not MLS athletes, because apparently they don't count.
No, but you know what I mean? Like they've exempted international athletes so that they can enter the country because it's time that sports come back.
Right.
How does this type of situation now play into the Hub City concept? I kind of feel that the NHL would have to acknowledge that makes it a lot easier for if there's enough NHL teams spread across the country to have those, hub sites for. I'm going to presume there's 4. Mm-hmm. That'd be my guess. Then it would be Canada. Because you think about the Canadian side of things, I can't imagine our government exempting professional athletes under the Quarantine Act. Because, Canada as a nation has had some of the most strict, isolation requirements. Mm-hmm. And even if a Canadian returns from abroad, you're isolated for 14 days.
Right.
So, it just makes it a whole lot easier for, in my mind, U.S. cities to get it. So, the Las Vegas which is already essentially open for business if anyone wants to go and gamble down at the casinos.
Yeah, I know the BC provincial government are very anti the border being reopened. For anyone.
But pro Hub City NHL teams.
So.
And then you have the city of Edmonton essentially saying, come here, we're going to have a private golf course for you, and we'll set up a movie like a...
COVID is like the only time that Edmonton sounds appealing, but... Oh
man, there's some of our listeners, they're gonna light Anna up now in Discord.
That's right. But like Toronto and Montreal, you've got to think with the situation they're in, how can they be Hub City contenders?
If I'm an NHL player, I would have more reservations in Ontario and Quebec right now. Yeah. I'd have equal reservations about going to New York.
Yeah.
And that's not, I'm not suggesting the take itself is completely reasonable, but it's definitely not unreasonable. There is, genuine worry.
In terms of, I'm not sure if it's cases per million, hospitalizations per million, or deaths per million. I think it's deaths per million. Ontario is officially doing worse than New York now.
That's too bad.
Which is like one of the most populous places ever. So obviously that's terrible. I wish that weren't the case, but it's a concern.
It is definitely. Anywho, one final question. Are you for this format? This sort of playoff extended into probably, we're talking August type season, because there's going to be a preseason. There'll be a pre-playoff training camp. That's tentatively aiming for the middle of June. Mm-hmm. Let's presume that goes for 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Think they do 2 weeks? They could do a week, but I think 2 weeks is probably best. So that means playoffs start in July. And even if they were just to go and hammer through like games, I can't conceivably see NHL playoff hockey and a Stanley Cup being awarded until the middle of August at the earliest. And then subsequently, that will delay the restart of the actual season for 2020-2021, which I think I had read that they would be looking at that happening. Essentially, things start kicking off into October with the season start of November, December.
Yeah.
And then, beyond that, needs to be a period of free agency. There'll need to be training camps. A draft is going to occur.
Right. Although I think they're totally fine with a delayed restart of the 2021 season. The more time there is for...
Oh, yeah. I'm not... the delayed restart, I don't so much have the issue with. It's just what is it that we're going to see? Like we've talked about this in previous episodes. Is the winning of a Stanley Cup all that matters? Like if the Vancouver Canucks win this, what was it? I can't remember what the Twitter account was, but they did like NHL simulations, and the Canucks actually won the virtual Stanley Cup that was awarded.
Yeah, I didn't like that. Don't build up my hopes just to break my heart.
But let's say hypothetically, Bo Horvat goes out to Gary, picks it up, holds it over his head. Do we care?
Honestly, I do not. I think if the Canucks somehow battle through this crazy idea of a playoff series, like, don't get wrong, it's really weird, but so is the world we're living in. I think, and they battled through a pandemic to get there. I think, there should be an asterisk at the end of that Stanley Cup win, but it should be like, these guys won it like during a pandemic. Like, it's more impressive if anything.
Well, I mean, and that's the other thing. Like, their Stanley Cups have been awarded in shortened seasons before. I mean, we've had lockout shortened seasons.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I mean, add an asterisk because it's different, but I would suggest that this is a tougher situation considering the circumstances. Like, functionally, these players have had the postseason. Yeah. Hockey suspended back in March. We are now talking about the resumption of hockey, actual competitive play, the end of June, start of July. That's longer than the off season for non-playoff teams in some respect, right? So,
yeah. The one caveat I would give to that is that, like, do I care that much about how weird this is? Not really. But do I care? Like, do I want hockey back that much? That I want, like, players to be endangered, players to be, like, taken away from their families, all of that? No, not at all. Like,
no.
Screw the Stanley Cup. Like,
and I think for me, like, I mean, we were talking before I hit the record button. I've somewhat checked out on hockey. Like, I've sort of come to this position where, yeah, if it's on, I'm going to watch it. If it comes back, I'll enjoy it because I'd like to return to sports. But, you know, for those of you, and you might disagree with me, and I'm completely on board with that, there's more important things.
Definitely.
Right? And that's...
I don't want to monkey dance, like, with these people's lives, you know?
Yeah, like, and I mean, so going back to, like, Daniel Wagner's tweet, what he's saying is how I feel. I mean, I acknowledge there's bigger things at play, and the business side gets in the way of sometimes more practical decisions. But for every person I see, it's like, oh, the NHL's coming back. Bring the NHL back. I find that so odd. Like, I'm not. I want it back too, but I want it back the right way.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, I'm almost sitting on the fence. But if you were to force me at this point, do I want to see this return? If it doesn't happen, I could live without it. So I'm going to actually probably lean to the no.
Cool.
Anyway, we're going to take a quick break here and go into Half Full, Half Empty. You are listening to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast at CanucksHockeyBlog.com.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on that.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? Because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He didn't play. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And, yeah, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
So our Vancouver Canucks, if they make the playoffs, or the pre-playoffs, which I think is what they would be going into, like, it appears, and again, we don't know this for certain, but it appears that the Vancouver Canucks are going to be taking on their arch rivals, the Minnesota Wild, which was a conversation that happened in C4 Discord, which if you're not part of, you need to be part of C4 Discord. It's just go to bit.ly/C4 Discord. We had this conversation. Minnesota, for the most part, sees the Vancouver Canucks as their rival, and we have to go back a long time when the Vancouver Canucks and Minnesota had a functional rivalry. Like, when Louis first arrived as a Canuck was ultimately when this rivalry existed.
Right.
The Vancouver Canucks have since moved on. We had the rivalry versus the Chicago Blackhawks until we slayed that dragon.
Right.
And then we had a more recent rivalry with the Boston Bruins, which now has the legacy of it's the 2011, memory. It's no different than how the, New York Rangers were always a rival because of 94.
Mm-hmm. And then there are those kind of lesser rivalries with, say, like the Oilers, the Flames, the Kings.
Yeah, but those, you're right, lesser rivalries. But like the Oilers, Flames, there's always going to be a rivalry there. But the Vancouver Canucks cannot go and look at either one of them as a rival because Edmonton and Calgary are rivals.
That's
right?
the big one.
Yeah, it's like the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and the Vancouver Canucks are, a close friend that lives down in the valley.
Right.
Sure, we're on the show. We're not really the
Has
town when it
quarantine
comes to our
been getting
relationship.
to Chris? That's your reference point?
Oh gosh, is it? Can you tell?
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
First and foremost,
we don't play in the same division as them anymore.
No. And I
Like,
there was
even when
there
we
were-
did.
Yeah, but I think some of that had to do with the fact that Minnesota Wild were really effective at dead puck hockey.
Mm-hmm.
And how much of the rivalry was just us hating on the fact that they were really effective at dead puck hockey?
Yeah.
Anyhow, Vancouver Canucks matching up versus the Minnesota Wild. I can't begin to even suggest that I know much of this matchup. As I said, I sort of started to check out of the NHL altogether, and let alone teams not titled Vancouver Canucks.
Mm-hmm.
So can you break this down for me, what you see the matchup as looking like?
Well, I think we've talked about like who we wanted to face off against in the playoffs, and we talked about like Edmonton being a really fun series, Calgary being a really fun series. But in terms of this series, I just see it as one the Canucks could take.
Mm-hmm.
And not like it's an easy win, because I think Canucks are a better team than Minnesota, but that hasn't always worked out for them in the past, and they seem to have like weird little bunnies in like Kevin Fiala seems to always score against the Canucks, just like whatever happens. And Canucks are still pretty defensively weak, so that is going to be a concern. But honestly, like I feel confident in saying, yeah, I think the Canucks can win this.
Okay. Well, I feel a Vancouver Canucks team that is healthy, which
pretty much are.
Yeah, I don't know of any player that would not have essentially returned to hockey shape. Furland, obviously, question mark there.
And we don't know, like Levo, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to say Levo. But, if let's say they all are,
mm-hmm.
the Vancouver Canucks team is probably the same team we saw playing extremely, high competition hockey, late 2019. And we saw sort of November, December, especially in the high event game where they could generate a ton of offense. And if Markstrom is still the same goaltender he was 20 years ago when the Vancouver Canucks last played, you're right. I think matching up, this is the Vancouver Canucks team that is much better than their record probably would seed them as within this sort of pre-playoff tournament.
Yes.
But then we also have to factor in other vectors, like the fact that, one, there's no fans in the building, neutral ice, the style of play that's going to develop when it's game after game after game. Like there's been talk about how there'll be multiple games over the course of a day, similar to what we see in sort of round robin tournaments. Yeah. And if, let's say, with playoff hockey, I'm going to presume the players will leave it all on the ice. If there's limited recovery,
sweat and bodily fluids.
Exactly. Limited time for recovery. We already know the Vancouver Canucks as a team are maybe not the most durable.
Yes. I say that Canucks are not built for a long playoff run. They are very top heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Their top six is one of the better ones. I don't want to say in the league, but like definitely like up there, very competitive in the league. But then below that, it gets a bit squiffy, and then below our first two defensive pairings, gets very squiffy. Like,
is squiffy the technical term?
Squiffy's a technical term. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just checking in.
Yeah, that's written down in the NHL coaching manual.
Okay.
But yeah, so that does concern me. Like, if we get any injuries to that top six, if Quinn Hughes or Alex Edler goes down injured, that concerns me. If Jacob Markstrom goes down injured, like, Jesus, we're screwed. But
speaking of, actually, you see the picture of Tyson Demko?
Yeah. Thatcher Demko?
Or sorry, Thatcher Demko. I'm getting
like Tyson. You're just confusing all different Canadian sounding names.
Yeah, was it? It's Tyler Pedersen and Bo Toffoli.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, are you confusing Tyler Myers or like Tyson Foods? I didn't know.
Well, Tyson Foods owns this podcast, just like it owns TSN 1040.
Yeah, I
but the picture of Demko without his gear, or like.
I mean, people are making quite a big deal of how rough he looked in that, but I mean, like he's playing in his garden or whatever.
Yes, wearing like did he go by the Value Village?
Yeah, exactly.
I hope he sanitized the gear before he put it on.
I know, and then just like you could see every time he didn't want to drop onto the floor, so there was like a couple of seconds hesitation because it's like that ain't ice. So yeah, I mean, didn't look good, but I think everyone's of the opinion that we're riding Markey hard.
Oh yeah. That's if injury is the only reason that Markey doesn't there isn't even a scenario where Markey is so bad that we see a Corey Schneider come in replace of a Roberto Luongo.
Oh yeah, I think like unless he's exhausted, I don't see it happening. Like, and speaking to the depth thing, Minnesota are like not that deep either. I mean, you look at their fourth line, and you're like, oh, that's where those players ended up, and I wondered what had happened to so and so. So, like, I don't think that's a huge concern. And our top six is better than their top six. Like, so freaky things can happen, and who knows with this new playoff series. But this matchup, I do think the Canucks are stronger, and they over 3 games, 5 games, hopefully at least 5, they can win it.
So let's say they win those 5 games, or best of 5, or whatever the heck it turns out to be. Then they have essentially, I'm going to presume, stay in the same hub city. Like I think we would see 4 hub cities, and they won't move until such time as the Stanley Cup semifinal would exist. I would imagine the league will have the scenario in so much that once you get to the semis, I could see those 4 teams traveling to that neutral location, whichever one happens.
Will there be a 5th city, or they just?
I mean, I guess they could go to a 5th city if they were wanting to sort of spread the love.
Yeah, but I guess it just adds another element of.
Yeah, I mean, logistically, it's just if you work with what you know. Right, you've already got. Everyone knows how. Like think of the playoffs as almost the preseason from a logistical side of things. The player personnel, the league personnel, the building operations person. Like everyone will have fine-tuned the process. So that's why I think of the 4 hub cities that are started with, one of those 4 will be the final.
Yeah, makes sense.
But this is the NHL. They don't always think in logical terms.
True.
So anyhow, okay. So Vancouver Canucks, you think they have a chance
against Minnesota?
Okay, I can accept that. I mean, and again, if hockey resumes, we're still at least a month away before that puck drops for the first game.
Yes,
there's just so much that has to come up and get sorted out.
Yeah.
Anyhow, a few other things that I wanted to touch on. While you have me here and you can educate me, because again, I've totally tuned out of the NHL. It's been so long. The NHL draft.
Yes.
When might it take place, and what might it look like?
So, Bob McKenzie, who is like wise in the ways of everything, was tweeting about this today, actually, as we're recording on Monday. He was tweeting this afternoon. And basically, they don't know. And there's all these possibilities. But one possibility is that it takes place during, like, end of June, during this play-in series. So, not only do we not know who makes the play-ins proper, quote-unquote, of the 16 teams, so we don't know who misses out, therefore who should go in the lottery. We also don't know, like, anything to do with finishing So I guess Bob McKenzie's idea was that they would end up running a lottery with empty slots, where it would be team 1 to 8 plus the teams that are missing out that are already in the lottery.
Okay, so like Team 9 could conceivably win the number. Well, this is the struggle I have with this. So now, unless there were 2 lotteries, but let's say Team 9, their ball gets picked and they're the first overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
If you happen to be the team, if you were to lose your series, guarantees yourself first overall pick.
I know.
Do you think you Buffalo it?
I mean, Buffalo messed up that whole thing.
No,
well, they actually didn't. They did it perfectly, but still getting
but like that. If it was going to plan, like this is the thing. Like if, let's say it's the Vancouver Canucks. Let's say it's the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah.
There's 2 things here. One is that pick theirs. If it's not theirs, they don't.
Yeah.
They're totally going for the win. They don't want the spot. If the pick happens to be theirs, knowing that we got to give up next year's pick now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's how much more of a sure thing would that be? Like, it's such a weird scenario. Yeah. I am of the belief that if they were to do one draft, which was, the teams that don't make the playoffs, sure, that's fine.
Yeah.
And if they had the empty spots, fine too. But there needs to then be a second sort of lottery for those spots. I
think you're completely right because, you don't want to end up in that scenario where a team still playing knows their potential, like playoffs, draft spot.
It's not so much that the potential; it's that
they can adjust their play to
exactly. I know there's many of you listening and be like, "Oh no, these are professional athletes. These players, they're going to give it their all. There's no way this would happen." Again, I give you Exhibit A, the Buffalo Sabres,
and the fact that there's such bizarre circumstances that they're playing in anyway. Maybe there's a player that doesn't want to play or is a bit concerned about playing or has a baby due in July. No, I'm not saying that. Well, that is far too good and pure to ever not play his damn hardest, but it's
a weird situation.
It's a weird situation. I think without that second lottery, this is not the best it can be solution.
Yeah. The other thing, and this is more on a personal, a little bit off the rails. Did you see that the NBA is doing the hub city concept, but they've done a little bit differently than the NHL?
So I saw something about Grizzlies versus Raptors right before we jumped on record, but that's all I have. So please flesh it out.
So the NBA has approached Disney to ask for access to the Wide World of Sports complex. Now,
what is that?
So essentially, so ABC network owns ESPN and Disney owns both type thing. They have an actual sort of theme park sports complex. Think of it's like if the Vancouver Canucks were to build like a rink, basketball courts, like a multi-sport complex type thing.
And where is
That's what this is. I want to say it's in Florida, like
so,
Orlando,
by Disney World.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know, but instead of having 4, the NBA is looking at having all of the teams come to one place, which logistically,
and what a place, Florida.
Yeah, well, there's other reasons that Florida's up in question marks right now, but this is not a politics podcast, so we can't get into that. The concept, though, is instead of going to a particular neutral site, which isn't all that neutral if it happens to be the home of a particular team, they are going to a true neutral site.
I mean, I guess the benefits is that you can control everything. You can just lock them up there.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, quarantine them for their own safety. And if you're not having fans anyway, I don't know, maybe it sounds like a crazy solution, but again, as we've said over and over, these are crazy times. Maybe that's the best way to go about things. If you, Although, do they, the amount of resources you'd have to bring with you, so you weren't putting
Well, I mean, that's the
pressure
thing.
on
Like,
the local
but
economy, health system, whatever. Not that
like
America really has one, but you know what I'm saying.
Sure. But I mean, having a central location, I'll use the Edmonton example. Like Edmonton was like, here is everything that we're going to go and do for you. You're going to get your private golf course, your private movie theater, your private this. Like we were joking around in Discord about like, are they going to lock down West Edmonton Mall and everyone gets like the players get, water
Like
park
a slumber
Wednesdays
party.
or something like that. Like a what? Sorry?
Like a giant slumber party.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. You'd be into that, right?
Mm-hmm. They wouldn't let me in, unfortunately. But
no, and actually, on that note, they could like totally like Big Brother got canceled. There's no Big Brother US, no Big Brother Canada. I mean, they could just market this. TV contracts be down, make more money. This is a revenue stream. You have like NHL After Dark, players running around in like their pajamas and all that.
Oh my god! I think we've officially like past the crazy.
Oh well, I was looking at your notes here, and you have a question. Are we going back to normal life? And I don't know if we'll ever get back to normal life after this.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you'll have to continue to tune in to future episodes to see if NHL After Dark, this Big Brother concept that you heard here first on C4.
The fact that it doesn't sound that crazy makes me think that like I need to have a reality check somewhere.
This is the league that went and named Brock Besser, the winner of the Man Rocket Award.
Man Rocket Monday.
Yeah, Man Rocket Monday. So Anna and I are on video right now, and unfortunately the look I just provided does not translate well into audio. But let me do it again for effect.
Yeah, that was great. I enjoyed that. You guys will have to imagine. Please join Discord and give the emoji that you think represents Chris's face to me just now.
You know what? I'll do it one more time. Anyhow.
Do you guys get that? Cool.
So, in all seriousness, Donna, I mean, how are things? Like, we're fortunate in BC where we've gone into this sort of, new phase of social distancing where we can double our bubble, which some people have interpreted as like, oh, so long as I only ever have 6 people with me, I'm okay. The problem is that doesn't mean you go and like, I'm going to double my bubble with 400 other bubbles.
Yeah.
It's more the small, tight-knit groups type thing. But today, you were able to book your campsite in BC and that crashed the website.
Yeah, or not. But yeah, it's definitely, we're definitely very fortunate here. Obviously, being from a country that's not doing so hot with tackling COVID, like I definitely get to see both sides of things. And
I mean, again, I only know what I know from the old country by news. You obviously can pick up the phone and get a much better understanding. I still find it really crazy that in the UK, it's like, hey, everyone, go to work. Just don't take transit. Like, I don't know London very well, but how you don't take transit and yet go into the city to work doesn't add up.
I mean, there's a lot of conflicting advice. Maybe that's why special aides to the Prime Minister got confused sometimes and thought that meant drive to Durham with your sick child. Who knows? Again, this isn't a politics podcast. We're not going to get into that. But yeah, it's a strange scenario. And yeah, my stepmom is right in the heart of it. She's a NHS doctor. She's an anaesthetist and she spends her days just trying to get COVID patients to breathe again. So
yeah, I mean, it's
I just hope it gets better soon. That's all.
No. And I think, we've said this before, but it's, people like her that they're the true heroes.
Yeah.
I mean, throughout
Don't
all
tell
this,
her that though, because she gets so embarrassed.
Oh, really? Well, does she listen to the podcast?
She does not, so it's fine.
Okay, because I mean, I know most of your family does. I can see it in the statistics. We are like the number 2 hockey podcast in the UK, and the only reason I think we're number 2 is that somehow there are enough people either confusing ice hockey for field hockey, or a field hockey podcast mistakenly chose the wrong hockey.
Yeah, maybe they're just waiting for us to get to field hockey. They're just like any week now they'll start talking about the right hockey.
Yeah, that's right. Got your haircut yet?
No, I just got an email from my hairdresser today, but I need my haircut, but I'm still a bit reluctant.
Well, so this weekend, I'm out with my parents. We doubled our bubble to include my parents. And my mom commented on my hair. So it's hard to describe to people who obviously can't see me through this auditory form of a podcast. But I've always had dark brown hair that I've kept short for the longest time. And now having not had a haircut for like 2.5 months, that hair has grown out and I have like white hair on the side. Like my paternal grandfather, he had like bleach white hair. Lots of it. But he went like white, not gray. We're talking white. So I have that white. Then there's this sort of transition zone where it's gray. And then the dark brown, it's like it's turned black.
Yeah. I didn't want to comment on the hair. I didn't know if it was a sensitive subject. But yeah, that's certainly getting like a little unruly in places. I'm not used to that.
And then there's this part like at the back, like I don't grow a mullet, but it's like the back of my head. Tail? Yeah, but the problem is it's so my daughter once asked, she's like, Daddy, the hair is going off of your head and going down your back.
The diplomat.
See, if she were to describe it now, the hair on my back is going up my head. That's sort of reached that point of, yeah, Chris needs a barber. But I'm not in a hurry to get my hair cut.
Yeah.
Have you gone to the bar to get a drink yet? Patio beverage?
No. No, not yet. Again, a bit reluctant to rush right back in, even though, honestly, bars and pubs, that's like one of the things I miss the most.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from hockey, is probably, but definitely want to take my time to ease back in.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's sort of my approach. Like I look at it this way. A week ago was essentially when we were sort of given permission here in BC to be a little more, liberal with our approach to the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
The double your bubble, get outside, stuff starts to resume, business start to resume. And I'm of the opinion that I'm going to wait 2 weeks from that point to let everyone else sort of guinea pig this experience.
Yeah.
To allow the further modeling to happen to ensure that, people aren't being full silly. Like I actually commented to a friend of mine. So I go to Costco. I do our shopping every Saturday morning. I go to Costco Saturday morning. I line up before the door is open. I'm out there. This past week I wore a mask. It's the first time I've worn a mask. We got one specifically, because I don't wear a mask because I'm afraid of other people. I wear a mask because I'm afraid that I might impact someone else. That's my choice. Anyhow, the lineups have actually started to get smaller since we were given the freedom to go out, which gives me pause to wonder, are people now less concerned? The hoarding has started to sort of die down because people equated, we can just go back to normal.
Yeah, like going shopping every couple days. Which I have to admit, that was my habit before all this started. Now I'm trying to go every 10 days at least.
Yeah, like I go to Costco on Saturdays and my wife hits the grocery store sometime midweek. So like, because not everything you can buy at Costco makes sense for us, but then
I'm also a one person.
Yeah, like I wouldn't expect, if you went to Costco, I can't imagine you'd be going as often as I am going. Mm-hmm. But even then, when I'm going, I'm not just shopping for me. I'm shopping for my sister, my brother, and my parents. Right? Like it's all, I take an order and I go in.
Santa with a sleigh.
Yeah. But it does concern me a little bit that the lineup started to disappear because, to your point, now are people now going out more often. BC Ferries this past weekend was busier than normal.
Right.
Now, let me phrase this. The busier than new normal. It was still significantly less than what it should be. But I kind of wonder if there are more and more people taking advantage of the ability to get out, but not realistically thinking of doing it smart. Because we rewind. Us in BC, we had some of the most lenient restrictions in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, for some reason or another, the province of BC collectively is like, we're told we shouldn't go outside? Well, I'm not going outside.
Yeah.
Well, we shouldn't go to the store to buy clothes? I'm not going to the store to buy clothes. Like,
and very grateful that we've had the curve we have, but if anything, I think it's a more uncertain time now because we don't know what we should be doing.
Exactly, and that's
and
where
everyone just has to kind of figure it out for themselves a little bit, and you can't spend your entire time worrying about everyone else. You just have to hope they're smart.
Yeah. And that was my take. Is I'm going to give this 2 weeks, see how things actually pan out, and then from there I might consider, getting my haircut. Although I know the barber I go to, they've already said, yeah, there's no way we're going to open until June at the earliest.
Right.
Whereas my mom, she already has her appointment booked at her salon for June. And that's not June because she waited until then. By the time she called them, they already had a wait list to that point. So
yeah, I'm not in a huge hurry. And although I was kind of slinging mud with your hair, as you commented before we started podcasting, I just got out of the shower and my hair is slightly crazy right now. But
hey, you know what? And that's the thing is, at the end of the day, if you didn't cut it yourself, it's going to be crazy. And
yeah, well, that's fine. I'm fine with that for now. I'm not too fussy about it.
Yeah. And I look at it this way. It's my badge of honor. No one can question, based on the status of my hair and the fact that I've been wearing the same casual clothing. Like, I don't know if I'll know how to actually put dress clothes on again.
Yeah, I have actually been trying to quote unquote dress for work every day. Not fully. I'm still more casual than I would usually be in the office, but I'm not wearing Canucks shirts every day.
Sure, but I'm gonna ask. Have you No Pants Tuesday yet?
I have not. I do share a home office with my roommate who is...
That makes it a little more complicated.
Yeah. And she has Zoom meetings, and I have Zoom meetings, so...
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I'm not implying that you would, but you know what I mean? There's... I was on a Zoom meeting where I can't remember... We were talking about sort of doing house tours, right? Because we're all seeing coworkers, working space. Like right now, you can see I have a chroma green screen set up, and people will be like, "Oh, what's that?" And I'll talk, and I might move my camera around, sort of show the size and all that.
You got to see my ceiling earlier.
Yeah, it's a stellar ceiling, nondescript as it could be. So anyhow, we one coworker's like, "Oh, here's my kitchen," blah blah blah, and then one of the others. It looks like she's in a concert hall, it's like this long.
And that's not a Zoom background. That's her actual.
No, it's not. It's and what it is. I think it's a combination of the webcam that she has, sort of doing that kind of telephoto lens effect. Okay. But then where she set up was in a nook, not so much a den, but a nook, and then there's a hall behind her. So it's sort of the combination. And so she's like, "I would get up and show you. But I'm not wearing pants, and I'm worried I might show things off I would regret."
I mean, she was honest.
Yeah, damn straight. And I'm sitting here red, okay, I now know stuff. But not that I know anything. I'm sure every one of our listeners at some point in time has not worn pants.
Wow.
Not necessarily for work. But...
yeah, it's a strange thing where you kind of get involved with people's lives a little more.
Mm-hmm. Hey, us podcasters, we have to put up with the fact that, Matt may or may not be clothed for an episode, right? That's just comes with the territory.
Or should we call it the PD and Best look? Did you see the screenshot of their FaceTime?
No, I didn't.
Neither of them were wearing shirts, which is their choice.
Their choice. Might be hot.
But yeah, it's definitely just interesting thing for the Canucks
to
put out there.
You want me to take my shirt off?
No, I'm good.
Okay. No, just
I think we'll sign off. No NHL After Dark for us.
I'll make it happen. Go throw my PJs on, run around the house. Anywho, as we wrap up this now well off the rails episode.
Matt's going to be so mad.
I have to share a secret. I enjoy it when it's just you and I, because we don't mind just having fun.
Yeah.
Matt doesn't like fun. No. Matt hates fun.
He hates fun. But this has been a very anti-Matt episode. We started by slagging him off, wondering why his fiancée is engaged to him, and then went completely off the rails and proposed an NHL-wide slumber party. So,
okay, now I have to. I see your shirt. You have a bear wearing hockey. Was it?
It's my Huggy Bear shirt.
Oh, Huggy Bear. Okay,
mm-hmm.
yeah.
It's the charity shirt. But I did not wear this to work today.
Okay. All I could see was like the head, so I didn't know the...
It's very cute, isn't it?
It is. It actually looks good. Yeah, I agree. It's a white shirt, not really for me, but looks good. Anyway, as we wrap this anti-Matt crazy off the rails ending to a podcast, Anna, where might people be able to find us?
Oh, you threw to me without warning. Now I have to... Oh, let me see if I can do this from memory. We're on Twitter at the C4 Podcast. We're on Facebook at the C4 Podcast as well. We're on CanucksHockeyBlog.com. We're on C4Podcast.com, where you can find all our old episodes. If you want to join us on Discord, like we talked about earlier, and that's where you can guess what face Chris was making with an emoji, amongst other things. Discussion of man rockets, etc. That's bit.ly/C4 Discord, and that's in all caps. You can also find it under our pinned tweet on Twitter.
Damn straight. See, I threw it with you to confidence because I knew you'd know. If you were Matt, it would just...
It's only taken however many hundreds of episodes.
No, but still, I have confidence in your abilities to do that type of thing. Like,
thanks, Dad.
Well, you're welcome. I already had to chastise you earlier for saying a particular word in Discord.
Yeah, jump on Discord to find out why Chris had to tell me off.
Oh, but I also know that you know the name of my daughter, and you don't just call her Baby Force because you don't know it.
No, that's true. I do remember when Matt got put on the spot, and turns out he doesn't know your daughter's name.
Oh, man. And I would have accepted even the shortened version, which is what I often use, right? So, anywho, if you are still listening to our podcast and you have yet to subscribe to it, do us a favor. Hit the subscribe button, whatever podcast player you're listening to. We can be found in every single one. One of the easiest ways, however, to keep track of our podcast is to go to podchaser.com/C4podcast, and it will provide you access to not only subscribe, but even leave reviews, whether it's a review of a particular episode, review of the entire show. You too can tell us how awesome myself and Anna are when compared to someone like Matt. And I'm not going to slag Adam because he is on the LTIR.
And do you remember the rule for the reviews?
Well, if you leave a review, generally it's me, but quite frankly, it'll be anyone if I'm not there. We will read the review verbatim.
And you have to... It's always 5 stars, but you're allowed to say it sucks.
That's right. Always 5 stars.
5 stars, it sucks.
Yeah. Chris at Light Force, trash. I'm like, yeah, totally, man. I'd like that. 5 stars. Oh, man. Any final words of wisdom you want to share with our millions and millions of C4 podcast listeners?
No. It was cool to discuss quote-unquote hockey news. Very excited for the prospect of hockey coming back, but so many caveats to that. And, you know, if it doesn't come back at all, I'm also fine with that.
Cool. The final words of wisdom I have, if you made it this far, we had a special guest a couple weeks ago. I think we're due for another one. Is there someone you want us to try to connect with and bring to our podcast? Let us know either in Discord, on Twitter, Facebook. You can send us even an email, c4@canuckshockeyblog.com, and we will do our best. You might ask for Gary Bettman, and we might give you Gary, not Bettman.
Gary, Chris's neighbor.
Yeah, like actually, Gary, my parents' neighbor. I don't know if Gary Bettman would actually come on our podcast, but I would at least send an email to try to inquire. Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, give us ideas. If there's someone that you think we need to get on, we'll do our best. You might even recommend Clay Emo, who's currently doing the podcast.
Clay who?
Exactly. So on behalf of Matt Lee at Matt_Lee_61, the LTIR, Adam, Owen L. Carter at Adam FOC, Anna Forsyth at A4Size03, and myself, Chris Golden at Light Force, I am going to sign this magical episode of the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast as heard on CanucksHockeyBlog.com with those words of, we out.